Hey guys, welcome to another episode on the Beauty Expanded podcast. Before we dive into today's guest speaker, I first wanted to let you guys know that you'll notice is that I've been doing a lot more collaborating with other experts in their respected industry, and I've been loving it. It brings on a new kind of energy. There's a literally energetic exchange between me and this other person. And it's been making this episode or this season of episodes much more fulfilling and exciting for me because I love engaging with people. I love learning about people. I love talking about business. And I also love learning. So this has been a really great kind of new thing that I've been doing that I believe you'll see more of in this season of episodes. And then the other thing I wanted to address as well is as entrepreneurs, we're not going to be an expert in everything. So we're not going to be an expert in digital advertising. We're not going to be an expert in messaging. We're not going to be an expert in accounting or taxes. More often than not, these are all skill sets that we have to learn and grow through our entire entrepreneurship journey. And me, for one, tax, accounting, bookkeeping is not something I'm remotely interested in. But I also know it's one of the things that is necessary in growing my business ethically, making sure that I'm not going to get audited, making sure that I have an understanding of where my finances are going and what I owe for taxes, etc. When I met Shay, who is our guest speaker, you're going to learn so much more about her. I was really drawn to her because her social media content provides a wealth of knowledge, and she explains things so clearly that it almost makes you feel like you got this. And it's one of those things that I find is really unique because I would say from my experience of owning several businesses, most CPAs and accountants don't necessarily understand the nuances of being an entrepreneur. They're numbers people, they're pencil pushers, as they say. Very, very logical. They understand numbers, and that's what makes them so good at what they do. But they don't understand necessarily, I would say most of them, don't really understand the challenges and the things that make a small business owner. They don't really understand all of those underlying things in the world of entrepreneurship, like all the things that we're expending from our accounts, how we're making money, how we're doing this and that, like all those little nuances that really make it challenging when you're growing your business. So when I came across Shay, I was like, wow, she's so unique because not only is she highly skilled and an expert in taxes, accounting, bookkeeping, all of those things, but she's also an entrepreneur. She owns a small or boutique sort of accounting firm of herself, which she'll explain further in this episode. But you can tell that she has niched herself towards beauty service providers and small businesses and entrepreneurs like myself. And she has a really good understanding of all the things that we're doing and investing in for our career and our education and how that can be used to our advantage through her expertise. So when it comes to CPA, tax, and accounting, it's not a necessarily sexy subject. But it is one of those necessities that we all need to be more mindful of, especially as our business begins to profit more. What can you write off? How should you be organizing your taxes? What should you be filing your business under? Is it an LLC or what about an S Corp? And all of those things. Those things are never truly talked about like when you're building your business. These are things that you kind of just dive right into as you're growing your business. When you have someone like Shay on your side, she can really help you understand your finances, what you should be spending your money on, what you can write off, and like where you can be a little bit more creative so that you can get the most benefits, financial benefits, write-offs for your business. This was actually a coaching call that she did inside our paramedical mentorship program with our mentees. But I found it so valuable because every question that I asked her, she answered, and she answered it so well. And I wanted to share it with you guys. I also wanted to just share a little bit more about our paramedical mentorship program too. because I feel like I need to add some context as to what this program is and why our training program is so different than any other paramedical tattoo trainer out there. And the reason why is because I've been in this industry for 6 years. And one of the things that I see happens more often than not is I see all of these aspiring artists getting into this field, people who are really passionate about helping other people and doing this for a living. And then they invest their energy, resource, time, and oftentimes their savings into getting trained and to jumpstart a new career for themselves in order to help people. And I think that's so beautiful. And it's one of the reasons why I got into this field as well. But what I started noticing was that a lot of people were falling through the cracks. So they were getting certified, going through the training, and then within that first year, they were trying to promote, market themselves, and all of a sudden they would quit. And the reason why they would quit is because it's one skill set to learn how to tattoo, but it's an entirely different skill set to learn how to build a business in tattooing. And I always took that for granted because I've owned several businesses and I've always had a very entrepreneurial spirit since I graduated from school. So for me, I had this underlying foundation and resiliency to building my own business, putting myself out there and all of that kind of stuff. And I took it for granted because it's a repetitious habit and thing that I've experienced over and over and over again. So I started seeing this huge gap in the marketplace of people getting trained and then falling off. And it was really disheartening because I knew one of the reasons they got into this field was to help other people, which I think is really beautiful. But then I also think there is a more powerful pull behind it, which is out of all the industries that you could technically invest your time, energy, and resources in, there was a reason, and I think that is owed respect and honor, that there is a reason why you were drawn into paramedical camouflage tattooing. Out of all the other beauty industries and services that you could offer, there was something that really pulled your heart to this industry. And I want to do everything I can to help fill that gap in. That's when I began to start asking myself, okay, so you're noticing all these people dropping off, and that timeline seems to be within that first to second year. So that first year, I would say, is either going to make you or break you. And of course, I can get into it in a different episode, all the reasons why I see people falling off. But really what I want to convey here right now is that I started our mentorship program, or added the mentorship layer to it so that I could help fill that gap further, so that I could really help support our artists within their first year, because that is the most pivotal year. Again, it's the one that's going to either make them or break their confidence in this industry as an artist and business owner. So that's why after you train with us for 5 days, you're immediately enrolled into our mentorship, where we do monthly coaching calls. Sometimes we do two, where sometimes we bring in guest speakers on a variety of topics that I know your business will need, and giving it the solid foundation, like Shay, for example, to talk about taxes and accounting and what to look for in an accountant and all that kind of stuff. So we bring in guest speakers to really help support the growth and development of your business. But then in these mentorship calls, we also continue your education, because there's no way, even in 5 days, that you're going to be introduced or be able to work on all the scars, skin types, skin tones out there in the world. I mean, I've been doing this for 6 years and I still haven't found a scar or a type of skin that has been identical to the next person, because everyone is so unique. It's also the reason why I'm still so passionate about what it is that I do, even after 6 years, is because it keeps me on my toes and it keeps things interesting. So I know your first year as an artist is going to even be more challenging because you have the lack of experience that I do. Through our mentorship, or the reason why I added the mentorship to our training program, is to truly support you as an artist and a business owner that first full year. And not to say that after the year, you're gone, bye, you'll never hear from me again. That's not how I operate. But I also know that that first year, you're going to need more handholding. You're going to need more attention, and you're going to need more guidance. And that's why we have our mentorship. So it's really cool because I geek out about this kind of stuff. And I've seen our artists become so much more successful because of that one change. which is that year-long support, like real lifelong support that is going to truly develop your business in a unique way. And that's through our mentorship. So you guys get to, as a listener, really get to see what that kind of support looks like when we unveil some of these coaching calls with you guys behind the scenes. We did one not too long ago with Mr. Bye Bye Stretch Mark Sean, talking about his inkless serum, which was also very informative. And then today, as you're listening to this, you're going to hear from Shay, and you're going to also hear our mentees ask them questions and really get a feel for what we need to be thinking about and preparing for when it comes to our bookkeeping for our beauty business. So I hope you enjoy. And then last but not least, just know that when we do our coaching calls, it is on Zoom. So it may sound a little wonky and distorted a few times, because that's the one thing about Zoom, is if for some reason we're kind of talking over each other, it does like a pause or a break. But for the most part, I think the episode is really valuable, full of knowledge and wisdom. And I hope you enjoy. And if you are interested in training with us, we would love to have you. And that's it. So enjoy. Hi, I'm Jade Hernandez, a camouflage tattoo artist and educator. I help beauty bosses effectively market their business and become the authority in their field, close more leads, and make more money. In the past 6 years, I've launched 2 successful beauty businesses to multiple 6 figures with over 100 5-star raving reviews and several media press spotlights. While most marketers will tell you to hustle and work harder for success, I'll show you how to create more value from the inside out so that you work less, make more, and truly expand and transform your business and life. This is the Beauty Expanded podcast.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Renesha. That is my government handle, but I go by Shay. My alias is the Legacy CPA because I strive for 3 things when we're working on anything related to accounting and taxes, which is making sure you organize your money, making sure that you're able to save it from the IRS. And then when you're ready to start building a legacy, it's really how do we take what you've earned all of the years throughout your work and build legacies. I personally enjoy the beauty space and have been working in the beauty space now for 4.5 years. I met my first beauty client when I was in the hospital pregnant with my twins, and the beauty client was also in the hospital looking for an accountant. And I kind of just fell into it. My mom was an at-home hairdresser, didn't really have a cosmetology license, and I understood the throes that she was going through with building a business while trying to be a single mom. And I just really understood the foundations of entrepreneurship at such an early age. Fun fact about me is I was a school bank teller at the age of 9. So I'm not new to this. I'm true to this. So I really enjoy everything related to financial literacy, money, taxes, wealth, and legacy.
Love it. I do have a couple questions, and then we'll open it up for anyone else that would like to ask you questions. So when your company, do you do bookkeeping, accounting? Is that the same thing? And then is taxes also the same thing? Because I get confused with that. And I actually thought my current bookkeeper was going to do my taxes, but I realized it was a different division of the company. And so I wanted you to explain that process.
Yeah, so let's talk about it. That is a very good question off the bat. A lot of people really, when it comes to understanding money, they think that it's one person that you work with and that's it. But the way that I like to describe it is, you know how you go to a hospital and the hospital have a bunch of different specialists. And those specialists, before you even get to the hospital, you may have to see your PCP, which then refers you out to all these specialists that can help heal you in different areas. Even when you think about the beauty industry, there are different modalities within the beauty industry, from tattooists, which is your community, all the way to cosmetic fillers and estheticians and makeup artists. But each individual may or may not require a license. Same thing as it relates to your money professional. So when you think about working with money professionals, it's almost like this ladder approach, meaning you have the bookkeeper who may or may not be technically educated in accounting, which you have to go to school for accounting for 2 years or 4 years. You can get an accounting certificate to be a bookkeeper, but you don't have to have a certified public accounting license to do bookkeeping, right? Bookkeeping is really just the organizational aspect of the money. There's money that moves throughout your bank account. And where do you organize that money? The money that's coming in gets organized as revenue. The money that goes out can be organized in up to over 250 accounts. That's what the bookkeeper is really responsible for. The next level is going to be the accountant. Still, the accountant doesn't require a certified public accounting license. At this stage, the accountant is required to understand the technical aspects of accounting. In this stage of accounting, there's like a bigger bubble because you have people who are technically trained in accounting, also have the wizards who may be technically trained in accounting and finance. So if you are a beauty business and you are just getting started, you may be okay with just the bookkeeper because you're really just trying to understand the foundational footprint of your business. But if you're three to 5 years in business and you're looking to grow and scale, the next person that you would want to hire on that team of money people is going to be an accountant. They're going to help you understand the money, how it's moving, and how the financial statements as a picture can help you get to multiple different levels. And then that last piece is the actual certified professional, which is the certified public accountant. So in the medical space, you got the nurse, you got the nurse practitioner, then you got the doctor. So the nurse is going to be the bookkeeper, the nurse practitioner is going to be the accountant, and the CPA is going to be the doctor. So the CPA is then going to be able to specialize in different areas of the certification, which in small business, you want to make sure you are working with a CPA that specializes in taxes because CPAs can specialize in auditing, which has nothing to do with business taxation, or they can specialize in nonprofit work, which has nothing to do with taxation. So that's the three different levels of the accounting space.
Dang, that kind of gets confusing, but you helped break that down really well. So thank you for that. Now, is it possible to have a CPA or a accountant who does both?
Absolutely. So at the Money Council, it's a two people firm. It's me and my spouse. So I'm the one that takes care of the front facing activity and the final facing activity with the IRS, right? So you're talking to me to understand what is required within the bookkeeping landscape, what your scope of work would include. But my firm is like that one stop shop, the one and all bookkeeping, accounting, and CPA services. My spouse handles the bookkeeping, so the actual organizational work, so that I can focus more so on the technical skill set. So you can't have a CPA that does both. So the way that I like to describe it is a bookkeeper cannot be an accountant or a CPA, but the CPA can be the bookkeeper and the accountant.
Okay, got it. Now, quick question. What is the point in having a bookkeeper? Because the way that you kind of explained it, I would just pass by the bookkeeper and just go straight for the accountant
Yeah.
slash CPA.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. It really boils down to budget, right? I respect all of the accounting professionals within that landscape. So I always say that if you are a beauty business making less than 75,000 in revenue, a CPA or an accountant is not going to benefit you. So it's going to be beneficial for you to use that smaller budget and work with a bookkeeper who understand the ins and outs of QuickBooks and accounting, but you really have to vet that bookkeeper because some people will go to bookkeepers and because they're not technically trained in accounting, they'll mess up their books and they end up paying for it twice. Now, as soon as you start making in the six-figure mark and you are making multiple six figures, at the multiple six-figure mark, definitely a small CPA firm that specializes in the industry that you're in, which is a beauty accountant, beauty CPA, and bypass the bookkeeper. So it really depends on the budget and what you're looking to achieve with whether you are just doing the beauty business on the side. If you're doing the beauty business on the side and your goal is to never expand and keep that as a side hustle, then the bookkeeper will be
Okay, cool. That makes sense. What was I going to ask? I just lost my question, but does anyone have any questions for Shay right now with what she has shared with us? I'll open up the floor. Okay, if not, I just remembered my question. What are the top 3, if there's even 3, but what would you say are the most common problems or mistakes that beauty professionals make when it comes to their money? Like when it comes to their business?
Ooh. So we're touching it. So the top mistake is not choosing the right accounting professional. Depending on what you do in beauty, meaning if you are just a service provider, meaning you don't sell retail, you don't have an e-commerce platform or anything like that, you can't really mess that aspect of accounting up. But if you get with a ill-informed bookkeeper because you are price shopping or cost shopping is what I would say, you end up sacrificing the quality of your bookkeeping. So what I've seen beauty professionals who had this top one mistake is they'll come to me and they'll say, I owe this much money in taxes. But when I look at their books as a CPA, I'll see that the bookkeeper would have double counted their income and their QuickBooks file is completely incorrect. So that's the number one mistake, going with the inexperienced bookkeeper that don't necessarily specialize in the service professional industry. Second mistake is when you begin to expand, accounting complexity expands with you. So it is like the second layer of making sure that you understand that if you decide to now attach retail services, meaning you're now going to white label a product that you sell that you may or may not drop ship, then now there's a full component of other sales tax landscape that opens up as you grow your business. And depending on how you've priced that retail product or service, it can actually put you out of business. So that will be the second biggest mistake. And then the third biggest mistake is just not paying quarterly estimated taxes. A lot of people, when they start a business, they have this mentality that I've been getting refunds as a W-2 employee, so I should expect the same thing as a business owner. Well, you don't get out what you don't put in. So if you're not paying into the tax system, there's no refund to be given to you unless there's tax legislation that creates refundable credits. But I don't want to get into that. But those are the top 3 mistakes that I see.
Okay. And then when you say not choosing the right person, so the top number 1 mistake, what are some things that people should be looking into as a beauty professional in their accountant?
Absolutely. Personality fit, right? That's a big one. You want to make sure that you and who can be a friend, but can hold you accountable in ways that will stretch you. If like your intent is to grow your beauty business, you want to make sure that you have someone who's strong, outside of the personality area and outside of the ability to hold you accountable. You want to make sure that you have someone that has a strong finance intellect, meaning had they spent a couple of years in working with the business to understand the fundamental aspects of business, to understand how different departments work together and how they built their business. So, do they understand the stress that comes along with wearing multiple hats, with having to be the admin, with having to be the bookkeeper, with having to be the accountant, because you want to make sure that that emotional intelligence piece is strong. And then the third piece I would say is the technical expertise around the tax landscape. A lot of people, when they think they go to H&R Block, because, as a beauty pro, you may say, well, I can DIY my own accounting. I don't need the bookkeeper. And then I'll just go to H&R Block or file my own taxes, right? But the thing is H&R Block or the big box tax chains will not hold your hand. I'm not gonna speak badly about the big box tax chains because I used to go there, but the intent with big box tax chains are to be more transactional in nature, get you in and out without really spending time with you to understand the strategy and structure piece to make sure, are we having those conversations where did you make too much in money? Is it now time for you to elevate your business structure so that you can capitalize or take advantage of these tax loopholes. So those are some of the things that you want to think about. Emotional intelligence. Do they have skin in the game? And can they do my taxes and help me strategically think to scale?
Yeah, that makes sense. I actually had a CPA/accountant who I loved who dealt with beauty professionals. And so she was in a specific niche. So I felt like she understood my kind of business. And I loved working with her. And I don't know how you work, Shay, but I'd love for you to share as well. But one of the things that was really nice is things have changed so much when it comes to electronics, just like getting receipts and all of that stuff documented. I remember way, way back in the day, I would have to save every receipt, like every expense,
Yeah.
everything, bookkeeping side of things. And I don't know if you work this way, but one of the things that I really loved about her, she retired. Otherwise, I'd still be working with her. But she
Mhm.
would just access like logins to everything. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but she would literally have my login to my bank accounts, my credit card, everything online. So I didn't have to save any receipts. And then quarterly, she would organize everything and let me know, like give me a heads up on what I would owe quarterly for taxes and payroll and all that stuff. But is that how most people work today?
Okay, yeah. So bookkeepers are a hit or miss. So I can't speak to the bookkeeper aspect of it, but as a technically trained accountant who understands the fundamental aspects of paper trail, yes, hands down. So with my clients at the Money Council, if they feel comfortable, I do allow them to save their password information in our encrypted system. So the encrypted system that we use at the Money Council for documentation, storage, communication, and all that jazz, it's an app and you can message me through the app. But we get your passwords up front in the onboarding process if you're comfortable with it. Now, when it comes to the paper receipt, there's nothing that will ever replace it. So if a bookkeeper tells you they don't need a paper receipt for your meals and entertainment, then that's opening you up to IRS audit risk because the IRS is always going to want to see the receipt. Now, you don't have to physically scan that receipt in. You don't have to physically save that receipt, put it in a, shoebox and ship it to the accountant. That's not how we work at the Money Council. QuickBooks is very smart and intuitive where you have two ways that you can get the receipt into the system. The first way is we set up an email address where if you're out and you're going to a meal with your team, you snap a picture of the receipt after you've written the notes on it. We give you the information to write on the receipt and you literally snap the picture and you send the email to the email address on file with QuickBooks. That's the first way that you can do it. The second way that you can do it, which is easier for our clients, is they snap the picture and they upload it to our portal. Okay. We use the portal as the catch all for all the receipts for anything that you would need in the event of an IRS audit. So instead of trying to scrummage through QuickBooks to say, here's all of the receipts, you just go to the portal and we can find the receipt that matches the expense within QuickBooks in the event that an IRS auditor wanted to see it.
Love that. Let's talk about write offs. It's like our favorite thing to talk about. So, when it comes to write offs, because sometimes I feel like everyone thinks that we could write off 100% of everything. So, how would you explain that? What can we really write off? And is it 100% or is it a percentage that we can, on average, write off? Like if we're training, continuing our education, or uniform, scrubs that we buy?
So I would say the more sexy write-offs that you hear on the internet is a 50-50 type of situation, right? So I'll touch the sexy part first and then I'll get into what are typical write-offs for beauty professionals in the space. So, writing off a G-Wagon, if you are not a traveling paramedical tattooist, it's an absolutely no, right? You cannot say that you purchased the G Wagon and you drive it to your shop or to your studio every day, and that constitutes a write off. In the IRS eyes, if they were to compare you to a traditional employee, the employee cannot write off their everyday commutes, and your commutes to and from your studio would be considered an everyday commute. And as a result, that G Wagon or any vehicle, for the matter of it being over 6,000 pounds, cannot be written off 100% for business. So I wanted to get that out of the way first. Second thing, think of the write-offs as being a sniff test. And I always say that it fits three principles. Is it ordinary for you being in business? Meaning, does everyone else within this industry use this type of expense to service the client? Is it necessary? So, is it necessary to bring in revenue? This is usually the revenue component. So, if I spend this, will I get this back in return? Or if I spend this on a supply that I need for for the studio, is it required for me to do my job? And then I always like to throw the third thing in there is it excessively lavish, right? This is not within the tax code, but the IRS has sometimes used this in the law landscape to either use a knockout to say, well, I always say promotional activities. So you could either, for example, use a backdrop for a promotional activity, or you could use something more expensive. When you compare the two, and one of the promotional activities might be $10,000, but the other one might be $2,000, it would have achieved the same result. Did you really need to spend the $10,000 to get the thing that was desired as a result of that? So think about that. Ordinary, necessary, and not excessively lavish. I have some videos from December. If you just scroll my Instagram, I did a whole write-off series in December in preparation for tax season. So feel free to just binge that content so that you could get it. And then I also have a free 101 tax write-off for service professionals in general. So if you want access to that, feel free to just DM me and I will shoot you the link to it.
Your wealth of knowledge, Shay. You're answering all these questions really, really well. Okay, so my other question is, if someone were to hire you, so I'm in Arizona, what state are you in?
Georgia.
So let's say I wanted to hire you, would you have to be licensed to work with Arizona businesses? How does that work?
Yeah. So for certified public accounting professionals, we can work with anyone within all 50 states. And that is for taxes, accounting, and bookkeeping. If you were to hire a bookkeeping or an accounting professional, they could do your bookkeeping and your accountant, but there are, I believe, 6 states that require you to have some additional formal training in order to prepare the taxes. I don't remember the states off the top of my head, but as a CPA, I'm not required to have that additional training, so I can support all 50 states.
Okay, perfect. And then let's say someone was wanting to hire you. How does this break out investment wise? Is it like a monthly fee? Like, how does it work with your business?
Yeah, so the way that it works initially is I do a business evaluation to see where you are in business. It's application that you have to fill out online. It's like a legit application. I call it the business survey so that I can understand where there might be any red or green flags. That business evaluation starts at $97. And the only reason there's a price tag attached to it, one, people have wasted my time historically where they haven't attended the meeting. Two, you actually get real advice when you show up to the call because the business survey is structured in such a way where I can spot where there are red flags. I'm either going to say, here are ways for you to improve it on your own, or here's what we can do at the Money Council, and the investment is this. Typical investment from that depends on whether the beauty professional has or does not have QuickBooks Online, or is or is not updated on bookkeeping. So there's a decision tree that we follow at the Money Council. If you are updated on your bookkeeping, then you fall in our just financial wellness. It's a financial spa day routine that we do on a monthly basis. I say that that starts off at 497. This means all you want is bookkeeping and you want to meet with us 4 times a year to understand your estimated tax consequence. Now, if you want bells and whistles attached to that service, then it falls over into our accounting suite and our CPA suite, which means we do more hand holding. We do more concierge service. We meet with you up to 8 times a year to allow you to get on our calendar if you have something that pops up. So if you want to qualify for funding and you need a comfort letter from me as a CPA, I work with you to prepare that. If you say this is my slow season and I have no idea what I should be working on from, a business standpoint, because I have business knowledge, we sit on the call, we work through that, right? So this is for someone who wants that partnership. That investment is at $9.97 per month, and at either two investments, taxes are included in that when you complete the 12 months for the full program, and we do your taxes at the end of the year.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Does anyone have any questions?
I was gonna try and do my camera, even though I just got back from the gym. So hey. I have a background in real estate, and we're so used to detailing every little expense, and I'm used to kind of dumping everything in the marketing bucket if it doesn't fit into the other buckets. Would you say that that same principle kind of applied to the beauty industry? Because I know other write-off categories have cap amounts, and anytime I bought a gift for somebody that maybe went over the $50 per person that we were allowed in real estate, and those are set by insurance commissioners and things like that. So it's a little different in the beauty industry. Do you have advice for what we are allowed to write off as far as like gifts and marketing and things like that? Do you have a list? I'm going to definitely go watch your content from December. So I'm looking forward to that. What do
Absolutely.
you think of
So
that?
if you DM me, there is a list that I have that are 101 typical business write-offs for service professionals. So yes, there's a list to answer that question. As far as standards for each category, so the gift standard in general is standard across the board. So the IRS says that the gift is actually capped at $25 per person. So for you in the real estate industry, if there is married filing joint couple, then it's typically $50. But for any gift, it's $25. Ways to get around that is if you stick a logo or you have logo material or business material that you send to the client. So for me, what I'm starting to do this year is I have like spa kits that I'm going to begin sending to clients who onboard with me for the specific case of onboarding them to DigiSuite Council, which is a learning platform that we're building in the Money Council for beauty professionals who aren't quite ready for the accountant. That has my logo on it. It is above $50. And because it's promotional material, then you can stick it in the promotional budget. In the promotional marketing budget, there is no cap. But what I like to say is there is a sniff test that the IRS uses before they decide to go and dig around. So typical, what I would like to call limit marks to stick to is your marketing and promotional budget should never go above 30% of revenue. Good standard is anywhere between 10 to 30%, but never above 30%. Because then it's just like, well, what's really going on here? Is it excessively lavish, which falls into the third question of how can you tell it's a write-off?
Okay. My second question, thank you very much. My second question is that I had a ton of startup expenses right at the tail end of 23. And I need to be able to write those babies off. My education, travel expenses, things like that. Is that easy to do when I think I did it once before in real estate and my accountant, I have one. And I was going to say, I'm attracted to your service because she's great at what she does, extremely thorough, but I never felt like she was. Not how you hear about people are like, well, my accountant saved me 2 grand because they dig around and they say, oh, well, you could just kind of push this over here. So I can see that you have a problem solving mind like that. So I do like that, but I will definitely need to be moving some of those latter 2023 expenses as part of my 24.
Yeah. So let's talk about that because this is where it gets really sticky. Okay. The IRS has case law that actually, and this is why I say it's very important for you to understand your background of the CPA that you're working with, because just because the CPA is a CPA doesn't necessarily mean that they have extensive knowledge in the case law aspect to support precedents of why they would guide you in one way or another. All right. And thank you for saying you like the problem solving aspect. So, on the startup expenses and your educational expenses, the IRS categorized these into two different buckets. So, I'm going to give you the rules for both. Okay. So, startup expenses, if you have not drawn in a penny of revenue, they have a cap, and that cap is $5,000. So I'm gonna start there. Okay. The cap is $5,000 for startup and $5,000 for organizational expenses. So together, you can write off up to $10,000, and anything extra has to be taken over the life of your business up to 15 years. So let's say, for instance, the startup budget was $20,000. You didn't bring in a cent of revenue and you spent the $20,000. Well, the IRS gives you the credit for the 10, but the additional 10 gets written off over 15 years. So you take the 10 divided by 15, that's what you get to take. Now, I always say that there are ways for you to be strategic about this. You can always say your startup and your organizational expenses are capped at $10,000 if you want to start a new business, are capped at $10,000. And that allows you to stay within the threshold that the IRS rules say. And then once you've started the business and you bring in the additional revenue, then you would want to start doing additional research for maybe adding a service. I always tell individuals, just do your startup budget for one service or for one product. Start that baby, and then you can start bringing in other products and services on your menu to then fully write off everything associated with bringing your full business plan to life. Does that answer your question on the startup side? It may not be what you want to hear, but those are the rules.
No, it's fine. I think, and you said that anything above and beyond that, and I think I fall within that, but everything above and beyond that, you can kind of write off over different years.
15 years. Yep.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
okay.
Now, the second component of educational expenses, the IRS has very specific rules of this as well. So if this is a brand new business for you, you've never done it before, they usually say that the educational expenses to do it are not considered a write-off. That's black and white. Okay. So what I typically tell business owners is, if there are a lot of services that you want to offer in this new business venture that you want to pursue, you start with the least service first. Okay. The service that's not going to cost you a lot in training and development, because you can't write it off, no harm, no foul. And then as you continue the business, you add additional service offerings on top of that to expand your menu service, so that that then becomes the write-off, because the continued professional education is required for you to continue your beauty business, depending on what type of licensing structure you have.
I got a question to add to that, Shay. So let's say
Yeah.
I've been in business for 6 years and I invest in so much like coaching and mentorships for business development. So then how does that fall in line with the sniff test and the write-offs?
So business development, to me, there's usually inner networking that happens within it. So business development is a subcategory for my client that falls within marketing and promotional. We have a business development, and it ties to the marketing budget. So as I mentioned earlier, never go above 30%. The question becomes, is this business development going to kick me over that limit?
All right, that makes sense. Does anyone else have any questions? It can get intimidating, I'll be honest, with like so
Yeah.
much that I have to keep track of. And then I also feel like when it comes to our finances and money, there's this a little bit of we want to know, but we also don't want to know.
Yeah. It's one of those things where the IRS does not have forgiveness around lack of knowledge. The IRS has a wealth of knowledge on their website, which are, I forget, I always forget what they're called, but they produce a lot of memos that are written in such a way that anyone can understand. When it usually gets tricky, comes to questions that you all are asking. Can I do this? Can I do that? Why not? Where's the case law that states the precedent? Is it black and white? Is it gray? In those situations, it is better for you to invest the money up front to know the answer versus getting caught with the IRS because it's not, you know how like in law where it's innocent until proven guilty? With the IRS, it's actually guilty until proven innocent. So the burden of proof is always on the taxpayer, even if you have a CPA. So if there's an error on the return, the IRS immediately defaults to the taxpayer as being responsible instead of the professional because the professional automatically defaults to have given you the appropriate information.
Makes sense. If you look in the chats, do you see the question? Okay. So the question someone is asking is, can you write off lunch meetings? I've heard of people doing this. Also, if I were to tattoo in a different state and need to fly into that state, is that a write-off?
Hands down, yes, on both cases. For the lunch meetings, it's a 50% threshold, so 50% would be given the deduction. The other part is considered a non-deductible expense. That's just the IRS rule. For the second piece, the airfare to fly into the state to do the tattoo is a write-off. More strategic aspect of this is if you are flying into the state to do the tattoo, it fits ordinary because you're in the business of tattooing and other traveling tattoo artists would do this. It's necessary because a client requested for you to do their tattoo. And from a strategic standpoint, that would be a billable expense to the client. So because there's income and revenue attached to that billable expense, which that's where it would fall in your profit and loss statement, the travel attached to that billable expense becomes the write-off. Now, excessively lavish for this category. The IRS does not allow you to write off first class. I believe you can get away with comfort class and coach, but IRS says no to first class because that's excessively lavish.
Love it. Okay. I have another question too. So this
Yes.
was a couple years ago where I would pay my assistants through PayPal. And there was something that my accountant at the time had said that I didn't actually need to give them a tax form because it was like payment through PayPal or there's some loophole or something like that. Do you know about that?
So 1099s are required if you pay a business who's a sole proprietor, so they operate under their social security number or a EIN that is not a partnership or S corporation. The other thing that 1099 NECs are attached to is if you are using direct deposit, so ACH or debit card to pay them. Credit card payments, if the business has a different merchant that issues them a 1099K, you are not required to send them a 1099 NEC because on their side, that income would be double counted. So you really have to understand the due diligence and the nature of doing business with a different business owner by issuing them a W-9. And your accountant would have additional questions to ask within a questionnaire to understand if this business falls within the landscape of needing a 1099 at the end of the year or not needing one.
Interesting. Okay, so what if I have a virtual assistant, Steph, who's amazing. She's in the Philippines. How does that work? Because she's completely out of the US.
So Philippines, as the way I had to research this for a client actually. So the Philippines, the way that that works, I'm going to expand this topic. You didn't ask this question, but because I did a CPE, it's very important here. So you have to understand the employment law in any country that you plan to hire. All right. So if you are hiring someone in the Philippines, the employment law just basically says it's similar to the US. If you have a work for hire agreement, you're good. Okay. The other thing that you have to consider is, what does the tax treaty say between the US and that country? So Philippines, the way that it works is if they use PayPal, PayPal will determine what needs to happen from a 1099 standpoint. If they use some other payment processing system, that payment processing system will also determine it. But you don't need to have any sort of employment agreement in place other than a work for hire agreement that specifies that they are a contractor and not an employee of your business. That agreement has to be in place. Otherwise, if they're treated as an employee, you fall in a different tax landscape for payroll taxes and employment law.
Okay. Dang, Shay. It just shows there's so many layers to this.
Yeah.
You literally have the answers to everything, which I'm really, really impressed by. Does anyone else have any questions? We've obviously shared your Instagram, but if you can just let us know where we can find you, I'll definitely be submitting that application because at $97 to get some insight on like what I'm doing right or what I can improve on is huge. But where can people find more information about you?
Absolutely. So Instagram tag in the message. So that's where you can find me on Instagram. I'm usually hanging out there, not necessarily on Facebook. If you are on Facebook, I do have a creator page under Shay Davis. That's where you can find little tidbits of me and my family. If you want more of the personal side of me and not the so serious side of accounting and CPA work. And then if you want to get started, my website, if you want to explore how our programs work, is there, themoneycouncil.com. And we do have a virtual discovery session if you want to understand how some of our programs are sample. And you can go here to look at that commercial. Lastly, if you do want to download the tax guide without DMing me, you can go here. And if you do want to apply to work with me one-on-one and jumpstart your journey with the Money Council, you will go here. For the last link, I will say that it is a better user experience completing that on your laptop because it's a very thorough survey. And I just really look forward to supporting you all on your journey. I'm very friendly on Instagram. I always say that if it is a very simple question that is a yes or no, and it doesn't require me to retrieve any additional information from you, shoot me a DM. I'm not going to charge you for that. But if it requires research or anything like that, I will always defer you to book a session. And depending on the level of research, it can get dicey really fast. I'll let you know which lane to go down.
Yeah, and that's actually how I found you because I just went down the rabbit hole, checked out a couple of videos, and then kept consuming more videos and more videos. Because again, even just through this webinar, there's just so much information out there. Thank you so much. If someone is making less than 75,000 a year, would you still be able to work with them, or do you have any resources to refer them maybe to a
Yeah,
bookkeeper?
I do. So Suite Council is our sister company. It's in the beta phase right now. And we do quarterly webinars there, which pretty much is office hours with me as the CPA. So the way that this works, it is going to launch Black Friday of this year. But the way that that works is you can book CPA chats through there that are $297. So that's 1 hour with a CPA chat. And then there's other blogs that gets released on a periodic basis for like some people say I need to see it in writing because that's how they learn. So any of the long form video content that is produced on a topic is going to be on that platform and not the Money Council. So think of Suite Council as being a digital suite of resources. And we'll have our own platform that's called Brinley, so business friendly resources that you can download and get access to very specific information for service and beauty.
Love it. All right. Well, thank you so much, Shay. I will send you over this recording as well. But before we log off, one last chance if anyone wants to ask her anything.
I don't have any more questions, but just did want to say thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome. You're welcome. My pleasure. I sound like I'm at Chick-fil-A.
Love it. Thank you so much, Shay. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'd love to connect and help you more. If you have a question you'd like for me to answer, please send it to jade@studioconceal.com. That's JAYD@studioconceal.com, and I might highlight it on my podcast. I find what's often personal is most general. So if this episode helped you, please share it with a friend who may need the encouragement and inspiration. I'll catch you on the next one.